Chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will completely transform how you see every battle you've fought, will revolutionize how you understand every war you've survived, will fundamentally shift how you perceive every conflict where you felt hopelessly outnumbered, desperately outmatched, impossibly overwhelmed by forces arrayed against you. Because right now, in this very moment, you're about to discover something so powerful, so profound, so absolutely earth-shattering that it will reframe every moment when you stood alone against many, when you faced armies with nothing but faith, when you confronted overwhelming opposition with only your conviction. You were never fighting alone. You were never truly outnumbered. You were never actually outmatched. Because when you stood to face your enemies, when you rose to confront your opposition, when you positioned yourself against overwhelming odds, heaven looked down and said, "That's one of mine," and immediately dispatched an army you couldn't see, forces you couldn't perceive, warriors you couldn't detect to fight alongside you, to battle for you, to war on your behalf. The numbers were against you. That part was real. You saw it clearly, counted it accurately, understood it completely. They were many. You were one. They had resources. You had nothing. They had support. You stood alone. They had backing. You had isolation. They had armies. You had yourself. The math was clear. The odds were obvious. The reality was undeniable. You were outnumbered 10 to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1, maybe more. Maybe so dramatically outnumbered that victory seemed impossible. Success appeared delusional, survival looked miraculous. And they knew it. Your enemies knew you were outnumbered. They counted on it, strategized around it, planned their attack based on it. They saw your solitude and assumed your vulnerability. They observed your isolation and concluded your weakness. They noticed your lack of visible support and determined your defeat was certain. Your failure was guaranteed. Your destruction was inevitable. They moved against you with confidence born of numerical superiority, with boldness rooted in resource advantage, with certainty based on observable facts. You were one. They were many. The outcome seemed predetermined. You felt the fear that comes with being outnumbered, that crushing weight of facing impossible odds, that paralyzing awareness of being overwhelmed by opposition, that devastating knowledge that by every logical calculation, by every reasonable assessment, by every rational evaluation, you shouldn't survive this, you couldn't win this, you wouldn't overcome this. The fear whispered lies that felt like truth. You're going to lose. You're going to fall. You're going to be destroyed. Give up now. Surrender now. Run now before it's too late, before they completely annihilate you, before they totally eliminate you. But something in you refused to surrender. Something in you declined to retreat. Something in you rejected the obvious conclusion that you should run, that you should quit, that you should give up in the face of impossible odds. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was faith. Maybe it was all three, but you stood, you stayed, you faced them despite the numbers, despite the odds, despite the impossibility. You stood your ground when logic said run, you held your position when reason said retreat. You maintained your stance when common sense said surrender. And that's when it happened. That's when heaven responded. That's when divine forces activated. That's when supernatural armies deployed. Because when you stood despite impossible odds, when you remained despite overwhelming opposition, when you held ground despite numerical disadvantage, you triggered something in the heavenly realm. You activated something in the spiritual dimension. You initiated something in the cosmic order. Heaven saw your stand and sent reinforcements. Divine forces witnessed your courage and dispatched support. Supernatural powers observed your faith and released armies. Tonight you're going to understand exactly what happened when you stood outnumbered. You're going to see clearly who was fighting with you when you thought you fought alone. You're going to recognize definitively what forces were operating on your behalf when you believed you faced overwhelming odds by yourself. Tonight, you're going to discover that you were never actually outnumbered because the army heaven sent to fight alongside you. The forces divine dispatched to battle for you. The warriors supernatural released to war on your behalf. They outnumbered your enemies so dramatically, so overwhelmingly, so completely, that your opponents never stood a chance. Your adversaries were always doomed to fail. Your enemies were destined to fall from the moment they decided to oppose someone under heaven's protection. Let me tell you who was in the army heaven sent. First, there were angels, not the gentle, peaceful, harp-playing beings of popular imagination, but warriors. Fierce warriors, powerful warriors, terrible warriors in the original sense of that word, inspiring terror, commanding awe, demonstrating might that makes human military power look like children playing with toys. Angels assigned specifically to you, commissioned particularly for your protection, dispatched especially for your defense. Angels who've been with you since birth, who know your destiny, who understand your assignment, who recognize your significance in the cosmic plan. These angels were there in every battle, every single one. When you faced that overwhelming opposition at work, angels were there fighting forces you couldn't see, battling spirits operating behind human actors, warring against principalities using people as pawns. When you stood against that family member who seemed possessed by irrational hatred toward you, angels were there combating, spiritual forces driving that hatred, fighting demonic influences fueling that opposition, warring against dark powers manipulating that person against you. When you confronted that situation that seemed designed to destroy you, angels were there blocking attacks aimed at your destiny, deflecting schemes targeting your purpose, neutralizing plots threatening your assignment. You couldn't see them, you couldn't perceive them, you couldn't detect them, but they were there, always there, constantly there, perpetually there, fighting battles in dimensions you couldn't access, warring in realms you couldn't perceive, operating in spheres you couldn't detect. The angels assigned to you are specialists. Some are warriors specializing in direct combat against spiritual enemies. Some are guardians specializing in protective operations around your life. Some are messengers specializing in delivering divine communications to your spirit. Some are guides specializing in directing your steps toward destiny. Some are providers specializing in releasing supernatural provision into your reality. You have an entire angelic team, an angelic squad, an angelic unit assigned exclusively to you, working constantly on your behalf, operating perpetually for your benefit, functioning continuously for your protection. Second, there were your ancestors. Not all ancestors, only the righteous ones, only the faithful ones, only those who walked with God and finished well, who completed their assignments and entered into rest, who fulfilled their purposes and now watch from that great cloud of witnesses the scripture speaks about, your grandmother who prayed for you before you were born, your great-grandfather who was a man of faith, that uncle who loved God genuinely, that aunt who served faithfully. They're not sleeping unconsciously. They're not disconnected from your journey. They're witnessing, they're aware, they're involved in ways permitted by divine order. These ancestors were interceding for you in every battle, praying on your behalf from the other side, petitioning heaven for your protection, requesting divine intervention for your preservation. That moment when you should have been destroyed but somehow survived, your grandmother was praying. That instance when death was certain but you escaped, your great-grandfather was interceding. That time when defeat was guaranteed but you won. That faithful aunt was petitioning heaven. Your ancestors have perspective you don't have. They can see patterns you can't see. They recognize schemes you can't recognize. They perceive strategies you can't perceive. From their vantage point, they see your enemy's plans before execution, recognize attacks before launching, perceive schemes before manifestation, and they pray accordingly. They intercede specifically. They petition precisely. Their prayers were creating protective barriers around you. Their intercessions were releasing divine favor toward you. Their petitions were activating supernatural intervention for you. Third, there were other believers you don't even know. People scattered across the world who were praying for you without knowing your name, interceding for you without knowing your face, petitioning heaven for you without knowing your story. How is this possible? Because the Holy Spirit prompts believers to pray for people they've never met, to intercede for situations they know nothing about, to petition for circumstances they can't articulate. The Spirit says, pray now, and they pray. The Spirit says, intercede now, and they intercede. The Spirit says, petition now, and they petition. These unknown intercessors were praying at critical moments. That woman in Africa woke at 3 a.m. with burden to pray for someone facing attack. That was you. That man in Asia felt sudden urgency to intercede for someone under spiritual assault. That was you. That believer in South America sensed divine prompting to petition for someone fighting overwhelming odds. That was you. They didn't know you. They couldn't identify you. They wouldn't recognize you if they saw you, but they prayed. They interceded. They petitioned. And their prayers were creating spiritual atmospheres that protected you. Their intercessions were releasing divine power that defended you. Their petitions were activating supernatural forces that fought for you. The global body of believers is connected in spiritual dimensions beyond physical awareness. When one member suffers, others sense it and respond. When one member faces attack, others feel it and intercede. When one member confronts overwhelming odds, others perceive it and pray. You were never fighting alone because believers around the world were praying, interceding, petitioning on your behalf even without knowing they were praying specifically for you, interceding particularly for you, petitioning especially for you. Fourth, there was divine wisdom operating as strategic advantage. While your enemies planned with human intelligence, divine wisdom was countering with supernatural strategy. While your opponents strategized with worldly knowledge, heavenly insight was responding with cosmic intelligence. Every move they made, wisdom had already prepared counter-move. Every attack they launched, wisdom had already arranged defense. Every scheme they plotted, wisdom had already orchestrated exposure. This divine wisdom was giving you supernatural downloads, ideas that seemed to come from nowhere, strategies that appeared suddenly, insights that emerged unexpectedly, solutions that manifested miraculously. That moment when you suddenly knew exactly what to do even though logically you shouldn't have known, that was divine wisdom downloading strategy. That instant when perfect response came to your mind even though you hadn't prepared it. That was supernatural intelligence providing guidance. That time when ideal solution appeared in your thoughts even though you hadn't figured it out, that was cosmic wisdom granting insight. Divine wisdom was also creating confusion in enemy camps, making them misunderstand situations, causing them to misinterpret circumstances, leading them to miscalculate responses. Your enemies thought they were moving strategically, but wisdom was manipulating their perceptions, guiding their conclusions toward error, directing their decisions toward failure. They believed they were outsmarting you, but they were actually being outmaneuvered by divine wisdom operating on your behalf, supernatural intelligence functioning for your benefit, cosmic strategy working for your advantage. Fifth, there was divine favor opening doors and creating opportunities. While your enemies tried to close every door, favor was opening new ones. While your opponents worked to eliminate every opportunity, favor was creating unexpected ones. While your adversaries schemed to cut off every option, favor was manifesting surprising ones. Favor that didn't make logical sense. Favor you didn't deserve based on credentials. Favor you couldn't explain by qualifications. Supernatural favor, divine favor, cosmic favor. This favor was causing people to help you who had no logical reason to help you. Resources to come to you from unexpected sources, opportunities to appear that shouldn't have been available to you. That person who inexplicably decided to assist you even though they barely knew you. That was favor operating. That resource that surprisingly became available right when you needed it. That was favor functioning. That opportunity that unexpectedly opened when all doors seemed closed. That was favor manifesting. Divine favor was also protecting you from consequences you deserved. Mistakes that should have destroyed you didn't. Errors that should have eliminated you didn't. Failures that should have disqualified you didn't. Not because you were perfect, but because favor covered you. Not because you were flawless, but because favor protected you. Not because you were without fault, but because favor shielded you. Favor was functioning as protective covering, operating as defensive barrier, working as supernatural shield between you and consequences your mistakes should have produced. Sixth, there was divine timing working as tactical advantage. Your enemies moved according to their timeline. But divine timing was controlling actual outcomes. They attacked when they thought timing was perfect. But timing was actually protecting you. They struck when they believed you were most vulnerable. But timing was actually positioning you for victory. What looked like their perfect timing was actually divine timing setting them up for defeat, arranging circumstances for their failure, orchestrating situations for their downfall. Divine timing was delaying certain attacks until you were ready to withstand them, postponing specific assaults until you were prepared to overcome them, holding back particular offensives until you were equipped to defeat them. That attack that was supposed to come earlier but mysteriously delayed until you were stronger. That was divine timing protecting you. That assault that should have happened sooner but strangely postponed until you were prepared. That was supernatural timing defending you. That offensive that was planned for earlier but inexplicably held back until you were ready. That was cosmic timing shielding you. Divine timing was also accelerating certain victories before enemies could regroup, speeding up specific breakthroughs before opponents could reorganize, hastening particular triumphs before adversaries could counterattack. That victory that came surprisingly quickly, that was divine timing working for you. That breakthrough that manifested unexpectedly fast, that was supernatural timing functioning for you. That triumph that appeared remarkably soon, that was cosmic timing operating for you. Seventh, there was divine power manifesting as supernatural intervention. When natural means were insufficient, supernatural power intervened. When human strength was inadequate, divine might manifested. When earthly resources were depleted, heavenly power released. Power that changes circumstances, power that alters situations, power that transforms realities. Not power you generated, not strength you produced, not might you created, but divine power, supernatural power, cosmic power flowing into your situation, manifesting in your circumstance, operating in your reality. This power was performing miracles you didn't recognize as miracles. Interventions you dismissed as coincidences, deliverances you explained as luck, that car accident you should have died in but walked away from. That was divine power protecting you. That financial disaster that should have destroyed you but somehow resolved. That was supernatural power intervening for you. That health crisis that should have killed you but mysteriously healed. That was cosmic power manifesting for you. Divine power was also strengthening you beyond natural capacity, enabling you to endure what you shouldn't have been able to endure, empowering you to withstand what you shouldn't have been able to withstand, sustaining you through what you shouldn't have been able to survive. That season, you don't know how you made it through. Divine power was sustaining you. That period, you can't explain how you survived. Supernatural power was strengthening you. That time, you don't understand how you endured. Cosmic power was empowering you. Eighth, there were divine strategies being downloaded that countered every enemy tactic. For every scheme your enemies devised, heaven had superior counter-scheme. For every plot your opponents created, divine wisdom had better counterplot. For every trap your adversaries set, supernatural intelligence had effective counter-trap. You weren't just surviving enemy attacks through sheer willpower. You were overcoming through divine strategy, through supernatural wisdom, through cosmic intelligence operating through you, guiding you, directing you. These strategies were manifesting as sudden insights, unexpected clarity, surprising wisdom. That moment you suddenly knew what to say even though you hadn't prepared, divine strategy speaking through you. That instant you unexpectedly understood what to do even though you hadn't planned, supernatural wisdom guiding you. That time you surprisingly recognized the trap even though it was well disguised, cosmic intelligence alerting you. Divine strategies were also causing enemy plans to backfire. What they meant for your harm was working for your good. What they intended for your destruction was producing your elevation. What they designed for your downfall was creating your breakthrough. That scheme that was supposed to eliminate you but instead promoted you. That was divine strategy reversing enemy plans. That plot that should have destroyed you but actually strengthened you, that was supernatural wisdom flipping opponent intentions. That trap that was meant to catch you but instead exposed them. That was cosmic intelligence turning adversary tactics against them. Ninth, there was divine provision supplying resources for battle. Every battle requires resources, energy, time, money, support. Your enemies had abundant resources, you seemed to have nothing. But divine provision was supplying what you needed exactly when you needed it. Not before you needed it, which would have been preference, but exactly when need arose, which was divine strategy teaching you dependence while providing supply. This provision was manifesting as supernatural energy when you should have been exhausted, sustaining strength when you should have collapsed, maintaining endurance when you should have quit. That day you functioned on no sleep but somehow performed excellently. Divine provision supplying energy. That week you worked endlessly but somehow stayed strong. Supernatural provision maintaining strength. That month you faced constant stress but somehow persevered. Cosmic provision sustaining endurance. Divine provision was also releasing resources from unexpected sources, money appearing mysteriously. Help arriving surprisingly, support manifesting unexpectedly. That bill that got paid and you don't know how, divine provision supplying need. That assistance that came from nowhere and saved you, supernatural provision releasing help. That resource that appeared suddenly and sustained you, cosmic provision manifesting supply. 10th, there was divine presence accompanying you constantly. This is most important, most powerful, most significant reality. You were never alone because divine presence was with you always. Every moment, every second, every instant. In every battle, every war, every conflict, divine presence was there. Not watching from distance, not observing from afar, not monitoring from heaven. But present, immediately present, intimately present, personally present with you, beside you, surrounding you. This presence was manifesting as peace in chaos, calm in storm, quietness in turmoil. That unexplainable peace you felt in the middle of overwhelming circumstances. That was divine presence. That mysterious calm you experienced in the center of chaos. That was supernatural presence. That strange quietness you sensed in the midst of turmoil. That was cosmic presence. Divine presence wasn't removing the battle but was present with you in the battle, wasn't eliminating the war but was accompanying you through the war, wasn't erasing the conflict but was sustaining you during the conflict. Divine presence was also speaking reassurance when fear overwhelmed, whispering courage when terror paralyzed, breathing confidence when doubt crushed, that quiet voice that said, "You will survive this." That was divine presence speaking. That gentle whisper that said, "You will overcome this." That was supernatural presence encouraging. That soft breath that said, "You will triumph in this." That was cosmic presence reassuring. Now let me tell you why the army heaven sent was always going to defeat your enemies. First, because spiritual forces are stronger than natural forces. Your enemies operated in natural realm. Heaven's army operates in spiritual realm. Spiritual always trumps natural. Supernatural always overcomes physical. Cosmic always dominates earthly. Your enemies could marshal human resources. Heaven's army commanded divine power. Your opponents could gather worldly support. Heaven's forces wielded supernatural might. Your adversaries could accumulate earthly strength. Heaven's warriors possessed cosmic authority. The battle was never equal. The contest was never balanced. The conflict was never fair. Your enemies thought they were fighting you. They were actually fighting heaven. Your opponents believed they opposed one person. They actually opposed divine forces. Your adversaries assumed they attacked isolated individual. They actually assaulted protected chosen one, backed by supernatural armies, defended by cosmic forces, supported by divine power. Second, because heaven's army knows the end from the beginning. Your enemies strategized based on present circumstances. Heaven's forces operated from eternal perspective. Your opponents planned according to visible factors. Heaven's army functioned from omniscient knowledge. Your adversaries calculated from available information. Heaven's warriors worked from complete understanding of all factors, all variables, all outcomes. This meant heaven's army was always positioning you for ultimate victory, even when immediate circumstances looked like defeat. Was always arranging situations for eventual triumph, even when present conditions suggested failure. Was always orchestrating outcomes for final success, even when current realities indicated loss. What looked like setback was actually setup. What appeared as defeat was actually divine positioning. What seemed like loss was actually strategic placement for greater victory coming. Third, because heaven's army is loyal absolutely. Your enemies might have had supporters who were loyal conditionally, temporarily, circumstantially. Heaven's forces are loyal unconditionally, eternally, absolutely. Angels don't abandon assignments. Ancestors don't stop interceding. Believers don't cease praying when prompted by Spirit. Divine wisdom doesn't withdraw guidance. Supernatural favor doesn't remove covering. Cosmic timing doesn't stop working. Divine power doesn't cease manifesting. Heavenly strategies don't quit downloading. Supernatural provision doesn't end supplying. Divine presence doesn't leave you. Heaven's army was with you at beginning of battle, with you in middle of war, with you at end of conflict, and heaven's army will be with you in next battle, next war, next conflict, always present, always active, always fighting for you, defending you, protecting you, sustaining you, guiding you, strengthening you, empowering you. Now let me tell you how to recognize heaven's army in your current battles. First, look for the unexplainable. Things happening that don't make logical sense. Circumstances working out that shouldn't work out. Situations resolving that should have remained problematic. Opportunities appearing that shouldn't have appeared. Resources manifesting that shouldn't have manifested. When the unexplainable happens, heaven's army is operating. When the impossible manifests, divine forces are working. When the miraculous occurs, supernatural power is moving. Second, look for the timely, perfect timing that you didn't orchestrate, ideal circumstances you didn't arrange, optimal conditions you didn't create, precise moments that benefit you maximally, exact situations that position you perfectly, specific circumstances that advance you ideally. When timing is too perfect to be coincidence, heaven's army is functioning. When circumstances align too precisely to be chance, divine wisdom is operating. When conditions come together too ideally to be luck, supernatural intelligence is working. Third, look for the protective, near misses you can't explain, close calls you barely survived, disasters you narrowly avoided, attacks that mysteriously failed, schemes that unexpectedly collapsed, plots that surprisingly exposed. When protection manifests inexplicably, heaven's army is defending. When danger is averted mysteriously, divine forces are shielding. When harm is prevented surprisingly, supernatural power is guarding. Fourth, look for the empowering. Strength you shouldn't have, endurance you can't explain, energy that doesn't make sense, wisdom beyond your knowledge, strategy beyond your planning, insight beyond your understanding. When empowerment comes supernaturally, heaven's army is strengthening. When capability manifests inexplicably, divine power is enabling. When capacity increases mysteriously, supernatural might is enlarging. So walk forward knowing this truth. You are never outnumbered, you are never outmatched, you are never alone. When you face opposition, heaven sees and sends reinforcements. When you confront enemies, divine forces dispatch support. When you stand against overwhelming odds, supernatural armies deploy for your defense. The army heaven sends is always greater than forces arrayed against you, always stronger than opposition facing you, always more powerful than enemies attacking you. Stand therefore, stand with confidence, stand with assurance, stand with certainty. Not in your own strength, but in strength of heaven's army fighting for you. Not in your own wisdom, but in wisdom of divine strategy guiding you. Not in your own power, but in power of supernatural might sustaining you. You were outnumbered by human calculation. But by heavenly count, your enemies were always outnumbered. They never stood a chance. They were always going to lose. They were destined to fall from the moment they opposed you. Because you're not just anyone, you're chosen one, you're protected one, you're defended one. You're one assigned by heaven, appointed by divine, commissioned by cosmic order. And heaven protects its assignments, divine defends its appointees, cosmic power guards its commissioned ones. You were outnumbered, but heaven sent an army. And that army was always, always, always going to win. This is your truth. This is your reality. This is your testimony. You were outnumbered, but heaven sent an army. And heaven's army never loses.